All right, welcome back. And in this lesson, we're going to be looking at the very last part of our very last shot. Oh boy, the VFX are almost finished. A couple things that we need here. One is we need this teleport kind of disappear effect, much like we did just in the last lesson. We're also going to add some blood here on the floor and a wound here because she just got shot, man. I mean, things aren't going to be so clean. So let's go ahead and dive back into Fusion. And here we have our clone here from before. And let's rename this stuff. So this is freeze, frame, time speed. This will be face and torso, mask, polygon. And then we have our blink, clone, merge. All right, we're gonna take all of this and we're gonna add an underlay. So I'll select all of this and hit Shift Spacebar and type UND. What this does is kind of labels things, kind of groups things to where we can move them all together at once, as well as just have things sort of labeled. Unclick this and hold down Alt and click it again, and that will just select the underlay, so you can move that individually. And you can also hit F2 and rename it, and we'll call this Blink Clone, just like that. Now, if we click off of this and click back on, we can move this around as a little group. Now, I like working like this rather than making this into a group because you can actually select a bunch of nodes here. Because you can actually select a bunch of nodes and hit Control G and make it into a group. The problem is that if you double click, you can open that up, but it just kind of gets messy. And then it's really not any better than having this underlay and you kind of move it around willy-nilly. It's just kind of messy. So I find it's better to just have everything with an underlay and then you can just zoom in and out and pan around and figure out where you're at. So this is going to be, I think, probably a pretty complicated flow down here. So we will do our best to keep things as simple as we can and labeled and all of that stuff. Why don't we start with the blood and gore first of all? We're going to go back to our VFX here in the media pool and I'll right click and say import media. And we're going to get the blood texture, chicken light, and the bullet hole.png. And that's all we need. I'll hit open. And let's right click on these and we'll say create bin with selected clips. Go back and we'll call this bin gore. All right. Now the chicken light, you're wondering, why is the chicken light in gore? Well, it's going to be a reflection on the blood. Let's first of all add our bullet hole. This is just a 3D rendered kind of bullet texture, bullet hole texture. And down here in our nodes, we're gonna take this output and merge it over our blink clone. And we'll rename this bullet wound media in. This will be bullet wound merge. And here in our merge, I'll hit 2. We're just gonna place this where probably on her chest here, where we think it'll make sense. Maybe rotate this a little bit, match the light, try to anyway. We'll just put this right here on her shirt. And we're gonna mask this because we wouldn't see all of this. Her shirt would kind of be over it. And so I think we'll do just keep this simple, select our bullet wound media in and click on polygon, add a polygon mask, and we'll just draw a little shape here to mask this. And I'm not gonna be too careful. Just kind of give the illusion that her clothes are kind of over this still. And now we have this little wound. Now, we're going to have to color correct this. So we'll select bullet wound here and add a color corrector. Again, let's come up here to options, pre-divide, post-multiply. And under correction, we'll take down some of the saturation and maybe even some of the gamma, just to darken this down a little bit. Make it match what might actually be happening. I think that works pretty well. Now we're also going to want sort of kind of a wet stain here. I think what we'll do is just get a color corrector node like this. And let's put this before our bullet wound because we want it to be under it. And we're going to take this blink clone, pipe it into our color corrector, and then merge our color corrected image over our regular image. We'll take this color corrector And what we'll do is kind of just bring the gain down a little bit, just so it's a little darker, maybe the gamma down a touch. So we're darkening everything, and then we're going to limit this with a mask. So we can draw that on the color corrector or the merge. It probably doesn't matter. And I'll just draw a little shape here, something like that. You can hold down Control to mess with these little handles. We want to make sure that it's nice and soft. We don't want any sharp corners here, something like that. And now we have that kind of wet stain. We can take this merge here and take this blend down and kind of go in between here. So maybe something that's just a little more subtle. Take our polygon and we'll soften this edge just a little. Maybe not even that much, maybe just a touch. Yeah. And I'd say that looks pretty good, but this red is just a little bit too intense. Let's go to color corrector here for our bullet wound. We're going to take down our saturation a lot, take down our gamma a lot. We just don't want this to be over the top. We want it to be, you can notice it, but not too crazy. Feel free to dial that in. That's what we'll go with right now, I think. Everything should be pretty much, shouldn't have to track anything. Looks good to me. But we are going to have to take all of this out right there when she disappears at frame 341. So let's take these merges and we'll animate each of the blends to be full right here at 340. And then next frame over completely down at 341. So now we have the bullet hole and then boom, she's gone. All right, that's working. Go down and name our nodes here. This color corrector is going to be bloodstain CC. Merge is going to be blood, bloodstain merge. Polygon is going to be blood stain mask poly. Polygon 1 is going to be bullet wound poly. Bullet wound CC. Now everything's named so we know what the heck is going on. Let's put an underlay under these. Shift space, UND. Resize this. Click off, hold down Alt, click back on the underlay, F2. We'll call this bullet wound and shirt blood. Bullet wound and shirt blood because we're going to have blood on the floor as well. Now, we had a conversation about how much blood would be around here if we were being realistic. Now, I won't pretend to be a a crime scene investigator or anything like that. I think that stuff's actually really sad, obviously. But for an action movie, you can kind of take some liberty and decide. So feel free to use however much or little gore you want to add to this. We're going to add just a pool of blood here, which may or may not be realistic, but it's a movie. So that's what we're doing. Here's how I would add a pool of blood. Is the first thing that we need is an actual kind of texture, an actual color of the blood. You could probably use like a background, put a background over this and, have it sort of a blood color and then use various transfer modes and a mask to make this kind of blood. But I think it's more realistic to have it have some shine and not just kind of tint the ground like what's happening here. So what we're going to use is a texture. We'll grab this blood texture here from our gore folder, drag this in, and we'll take the output, merge it over everything else. Again, this is something that we might want to put somewhere else here in our nodes, but it's not really going to matter because everything's going to be masked anyway. And this is a texture that is actually rendered out of Blender with some reflections and kind of a blood material. Now, I don't know how accurate this is, but at least gives you a little bit of reflections of what could be the ceiling, gives you some kind of light reflections and everything to play with. And so I think what we'll do is size this down a little bit to be something like this, maybe a little bigger. And we're going to mask this. We're going to mask the merge. The reason for that is because we might want to use this mask for other things, other layers and stuff. And we want it to be sized with our composition, which when you mask a merge layer, it always sizes with your composition. If you mask directly on an image, it will size with the image and you'll run into problems. So If you're going to use it for multiple things and not just one image, if you can, it's nice to use it on a merge or even a matte control. But for now, what we're going to do is use a different kind of mask than we've used, which is this fourth one, a B-spline. A B-spline is just a rounded polygon mask. It just kind of averages out all the points to just be really round, which is really nice for things like this. So let's click on that, and we're going to add that mask to our merge. This is B-spline 1. And with that selected, we'll go up here to our comp here, and we'll do just a kind of a circle here. And we'll just have this not be quite like a round circle, something maybe like that. And we'll soften this edge just a little bit, just to take the sharpness off of it, just a tiny bit. And now we're going to be putting this under her. So the way that we put this under her is we got a mask around her because we don't have her on a separate layer, really. So let's go get organized here. This B-spline is Blood Mask BSP for B-spline. And I think what we'll do is just disconnect this for a minute. And we're going to add a polygon mask here. I'll even disconnect this media in. And what we're going to do in this polygon 1 is this is going to be the mask for our girl mask polygon. So let's select that and go up here to our viewer. And we're going to do a pretty darn good job of drawing around at least this edge of her. So we probably don't need this entire shape, but we're going to be thorough here and try and get pretty detailed around her legs here. The great thing is that she's not going to be moving around a whole lot because she's dead. So we can be pretty detailed and we don't have to worry about animating it or anything like that. And we'll just actually go around this whole thing because we're going to probably use this for the disappear and probably a bunch of stuff. So we'll just take a minute and do a pretty good mask around her whole body. I won't worry about those curly cues. All right, there we have our pretty detailed mask around her. And let's bring up the mask here and we'll just soften this edge just a little, not too much, just a touch. Just take that little edge off. And now, since we have both of our masks built, we can start with our girl mask poly. And we'll pipe that into our blood mask. If we open that up in our second viewer, we can switch our paint mode to add invert. And even though we want this to show up where the black is, we can use this matte still and just invert the matte. This will totally work. We're going to have the blood be right where the black is. The reason we're doing it this way is because I want to be able to reuse this girl mask poly, and I don't want to run the blood mask into the girl mask because we might need to use the girl mask for other stuff. But the blood mask is just going to be used for the blood. Okay, so now if we connect our media in to our merge, I'll hit 2 on the keyboard here. We have it doing exactly the opposite of what it should do. Select our merge, go over to settings, and say apply mask inverted, and that will put our blood behind her and do a pretty darn good job.